So I've had so many couples come in on the brink of divorce who fit this dynamic more. They're in a criticize, defend loop. And then the negative view that you have of your partner gets more and more entrenched. My job is to help people get out of that loop and to see that the pattern is the problem. The reactions are the problem, that underneath it, we really love each other and we want the same thing. And witnessing what I see in my office, this is where I love my job and I could cry thinking about it. Seeing how much people love each other, that they really see and feel that love, it's amazing.
Welcome to the She Believes She Could podcast. I'm your host, Allison Walsh. Since 2020, this show has inspired thousands of women around the world to believe in themselves and take bold action toward the lives they're meant to live. Each episode brings you powerful conversations and practical strategies to strengthen your mindset, build your confidence and brand, grow your business, and protect your well-being, all while spotlighting stories of women who are making a difference and changing the world in their own way. I am so glad you're here. Now let's get to work. Today's guest is Colette Jane Fehr. She is a therapist, author, and host of Insights from the Couch podcast. After leaving an unfulfilling marriage and experiencing ineffective counseling, she became the therapist she needed, one who teaches connection, communication, and self-worth. Her book, The Cost of Quiet, helps people have the hard conversations that create secure love and real intimacy. Colette's work is honest, personal, and rooted in helping people finally feel seen. And as a quick reminder before we jump into the show, please make sure that you have subscribed to the podcast or are following along on YouTube, and make sure you're connecting on Instagram. We've got amazing resources for you, and we don't want you to miss any of them. So without further ado, let's get into the show. I am beyond thrilled that you are on our show today. Would you mind just sharing a little bit more about yourself with our audience?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Allison. I'm so excited to be here. So I am a licensed couples therapist. I've been doing this work for 13 years. And whether you consider me crazy or just really altruistic, I've really dedicated my life to the mission of helping people find emotional freedom through speaking and living their truth and creating deeper and more authentic connection. So I'm now also an author, soon to be.
Yay, we love authors here.
Yes. So my first book, The Cost of Quiet, How to Have the Hard Conversations That Create Secure, Lasting Love, is coming out February 3rd with Penguin Random House. So that's very exciting. And it's really the accumulation of all of my work as a couples therapist, and also coming from my personal story, because it was my own difficult divorce that led to this mission and my life's work.
Well, I'm so excited to dive into all things related to the book, but I also love a story of like reinvention, because this is, a second chapter for you, pun intended. Love that.
I love it.
But it really is, because you weren't a therapist right out of the gate, right? Like you got married. You were even a high school teacher at one point, right?
Yes. I've worn a lot of hats.
A lot of crowns.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Oh, but tell us more of the story. Like what got your interest? Because I know you went through your own struggle, which oftentimes the pain is what really kind of leads us to our purpose. But let's start there.
Yeah, I think the pain is what leads to our purpose. And I love that way of putting it. So right out of the gate, out of college, I was an English history major, first of all. It's a wonderful thing to study, but doesn't really lead you on a specific path. But I wanted to be a writer in the magazine business. So I devoted myself to that while I was a student and did internships at Rolling Stone magazine and Times Mirror, and then graduated from college, moved back to New York where I grew up, and got a job in the magazine business, but on the advertising side. And then because I am such an extrovert, in fact, on the Myers-Briggs, which some of your listeners might be familiar with that test, I almost broke the scale on extroversion. The psychologist who administered it said she's never seen someone with such a high score. So I kept getting pushed into sales because of my personality when I really wanted to be a writer, but it was just such a great way to make money and something that was such a natural fit for somebody who's so naturally outgoing, right? My battery is recharged with people instead of drained. So I found myself doing advertising sales, and then I moved to Florida for my then fiance's job. and found myself like, okay, what do I do now? And I went and worked at Disney in their marketing offices, and it was not a good cultural fit for me at all. I'm very much like a lone wolf, independent thinker, and you have to really tote the party line at Disney. At least this is many, many years ago. I don't know how it is now. So that got me thinking like, all right, what am I going to do with myself now that I live in Central Florida? And I ended up doing a sales job for Calvin Klein intimate apparel, right? So I've done so many things. Then I had children. I stayed home with my kids, and I thought that was what I wanted to do. And I think staying home with your children is a wonderful choice for those who are privileged enough to do it, as I was, but it was not the right choice for me. I felt very dissatisfied and overwhelmed by being a mom. I was a young mom in my 20s. And it probably also was in part that my marriage was not going well. So it was a very emotionally disconnected marriage. But at the time, I didn't have any language for what was missing. I knew something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And the feedback I got from my spouse, and I'm not blaming him because it takes two to tango, but the feedback I got when I would try to bring my emotions or my feelings or my needs was that it was too much. I was too emotional. I was making a thing out of nothing. And so it was very confusing. I doubted myself, and I ended up losing my voice and becoming very, very resentful, disconnected, embittered. I ended up getting divorced at 31 with 2 young kids. And my life sort of blew up. At that point, I had been out of the workforce for years. I didn't have enough of a career really to go back to, hence going to work as an English teacher. And I really decided I've got to find my way. So I ended up going back into sales because that was the only thing that I had known, and feeling like this just feels empty to me. I want something in my life that's meaningful. And my own parents had gotten divorced when I was they got separated when I was about 10 or 11 years old and divorced many years later. And then I was divorced, and I had a bad experience in marriage counseling. And I thought, this is something that's really missing, a need that isn't being met out there. What if I go back to grad school specifically to become a couples therapist and help the people that really want their relationship, which is so many of us, to make it work? Because I do think my marriage, it's all worked out in the end. I'm remarried. My ex-husband's happily remarried. But I think we could have made it work if we had found the right help.
Well, and I love the fact that you saw the need and you
Yes.
did something about it. You actioned on it because
You give me goosebumps.
well, and it's so true though. It's you can continue to be a bystander and watch other people struggle, or you can get in the arena and get in the ring, right, and fight for it and help other people have a different outcome. And you're right, there are not all marriage counselors are created equal, and you can end up in the wrong hands really, really fast, or people that are outside of their scope or think they can do it with one, they can do it with 2. No, you can't.
It's a
No, you
completely
can't.
different animal.
Yes.
And I think that is a real problem in the industry that I just want everyone to know. If you are looking for a relationship therapist, find somebody who specifically works with couples and is trained in that, because any counselor can theoretically work with you as a couple, but a lot don't have the training, and they just don't even know what they don't know. It's a completely different beast.
Yeah. So now you've done this for 13 years. You've been
Yes.
helping so many people and helping relationships. But where did the desire to write the book? Obviously, you liked the magazine world, so that kind of tracks. But when did you know you wanted to write a book? How did this come to fruition? We have a lot of aspiring authors that I'm sure are going, oh my gosh, she did it. Where did it come from?
Oh, I love this because I want to encourage everyone out there to do this, even though it's a bit of a roller coaster ride, as you well know. So I skipped one part of the career trajectory, and that just before my divorce, I started graduate school for writing. And so I had decided that I did need to have something that had meaning and purpose beyond just being a mom for me. But then when I got divorced, divorced and I needed to make an income, I had to drop out. I had only gotten about 1 year into an MFA program. So this was still always on the back burner. I really wanted to be a fiction writer. But as I did this work as a couples therapist, I was hearing women constantly coming into my office saying a version of what I felt in my marriage. And most of them were saying, I wish I had spoken up sooner. And I had all these high-powered female clients. I mean, CEOs, female neurosurgeons, right? Really, really smart, assertive women who had no problem speaking up in other areas of their life, but they weren't really being communicative and assertive in their relationships. And it's because we're also conditioned to be kind and to put others first and to be selfless. And if it's going to rock the boat, we don't want to disrupt the family system. So I realized there's a real need for this to get this message out there. And I began to think about it. And in 2023, in January, I found a journal I'd written in 2018 that said, this is the year I'm writing my book. And I was now talking about this book, writing for women specifically about how to communicate effectively in your romantic relationships. And here I am all these years later, right? 5 years later, I hadn't written a word. And I thought, wow, this is just never going to happen because we all know we're super busy. There's a million things. Women have so much on them, whether we have a job outside of the home or not. And I just said, I got to do it.
One story changed everything for me, and it can do the same for you too. I started by sharing my recovery story in small rooms, volunteering, and helping wherever I could. That story became my platform, led to leadership roles, media features, and eventually me starting She Believes She Could. What I realized is this: your personal brand is the bridge between who you are and who you can help. When you show up with purpose, your story becomes someone else's survival guide or their inspiration to keep going. The Impact Brand Accelerator is where I teach you how to turn your identity, message, and audience into impact. So if you're ready to build a service-driven brand that opens doors and expands your impact, enroll now.
And everybody told me, well, you'll never get a contract. You don't have a platform. And this is kind of the way it works for nonfiction. But I love a challenge. And I always say, I think of myself like the little engine that could, right? I think I can. So I just said, I'm going to write the book and then I'll figure out how to birth it into the world. And I started writing. I wrote a draft by myself, just without a contract. Every weekend, I just locked myself away and wrote. And then I thought I'll just self-publish if it's so hard to get an agent or, a book contract. And then I went to a Florida writers conference just to explore. I pitched a couple agents. They were all interested. I started looking for an agent because of the response I got. And I ended up getting this fabulous agent that's had 38 New York Times bestsellers. And the reason she went with me is because she said, I too have felt this way in my relationship. And this is a message that needs to be out in the world. So that's how it happened.
Oh my gosh. Well, so many things to unpack there. First of all, you did it despite being told it was going to be hard or impossible, right? So everybody listening, just shut down the haters, right? There's a reason the stat exists that only 1% of people that want to write books actually write them. So cheers to the 1%.
Believed she could.
Exactly.
There's a reason this is called what it is.
Exactly.
Because that's what it takes.
Yeah. You knew you had a message inside you that needed to be out in the world. So kudos to you for seeing that through. And, I think also you've had a track record of also doing other hard things, right? You got your TEDx, right? That's not easy.
Yes.
So all of these things are conditioning you and building your confidence to know that you can do it. And this world of being an author is just such an unknown journey and path. And, but again, it's the willingness to show up every day and learn and figure it out and just say, screw you, Fehr, we're going to do it anyways. Because on the other side of it, and I know this is where your fire comes from, the more people that read your book, the more lives and relationships that are going to change. And so that's where it's coming from. And I think that's exciting to think about, just the relationships that will be repaired, the skills people will learn, the comfort they will have in knowing. And I promised myself today was not going to turn into a therapy session on this couch, but it is such an important message. And as I was preparing for our time together, I've definitely suffered the cost of being quiet, and I think that, and as I was thinking of why, right? I think there's a lot of women out there that, and I know that there's women that listen to this show that can relate to this, that we push so hard to be successful and to end up in places and spaces of power and influence in our careers or whatever it is that we're doing. Yeah. And I know, at least to be true in my story, is that I'm a very different person than the person my husband married. Yeah. And I have to give him a lot of grace sometimes and just recognize that, but also not silence it. And I know myself, like I have kept quiet for years over things that I'm like, why did I shove that down? Like, why didn't I bring it to the surface? Like my needs are different now. My expectations are different. My goals are different. My dreams are different. Like who I was at 25 when I said I do is very different than the 42-year-old that sits here today that has 3 kids and has lived through hell in certain areas of life, you know, but also had great success. So, you know, I think there's a lot to be said there. So for those that are listening that are like, okay, she's got me hooked on Cost of Quiet, like what can readers expect in the book? What are some of the chapters or maybe stories that you love the most or you think are really going to sit with the readers?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited for everyone to read the book because I think we can all relate in some area. And I want to just start by saying that quiet in this sense is a euphemism for avoiding conflict, that we do often self-silence. We stuff down our needs because it seems like it isn't the right time. It's only going to turn into another circular argument. It's going to rock the boat in a way that won't produce results. You won't be heard. And the cost of that is too great. But there are lots of different ways that we avoid conflict. And some of them aren't as quiet as you might think. Bickering, getting into those bickering loops about the household chores or why didn't you do what you said you were going to do? The mental load, which we know is still so unevenly divided. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of work to do as a society to help in heterosexual relationships men understand that they need to be thinking about these things. So many people are fighting over those things. When you're in a bickering loop, this is a form of avoidance because you're not really talking about your feelings and needs. And there's so many more. So I outline all the different ways that we avoid that damage and erode the relationship over time. Actually, one of my favorites is victim volcano. That's what I call it, where you just push everything down, right? Or you tell yourself it's not that big of a deal, but it builds and builds and builds, and eventually you explode. And it comes out sideways in a way a partner can't possibly hear. So once I really explain the problem, and then I get into our attachment styles and how that can influence the ways we avoid and why this is such a thing. It's fear. It's underlying fear of jeopardizing our relationships and also of putting our needs out there and having them not met. Being vulnerable is inherently scary. And yet what I'm saying in this book is that we have to do this. We have an obligation to honor ourselves by connecting inside, figuring out what we need, because as you well know, a lot of women don't even really know their own emotional needs because we're so tuned into everyone else. And then I give you a method of how to communicate effectively, which I call self-connected communication. And this is really knowing your deeper layers, your inner child, advocating for that part of yourself, and coming to your partner, regardless of how they respond, with a very clear message that is vulnerable, but it's also assertive and it's kind. And I talk about this in my TEDx talk too, which is really a distillation of the book, that you've got to have those ingredients together in order for communication to have a chance to be successful. And most of us do not learn how to do this in our families of origin. I had to become a therapist to learn how to do it. But once you're onto it, and once you understand the paradox of fear, which is that the more you do the thing you're scared of, the easier it becomes, you will never silence yourself again.
And that has a ripple effect into other areas of your life.
Absolutely.
100%. And, you know, I've noticed that as I've done work on myself or my relationship, like it has had a positive impact. You learn skills, right? You learn how to navigate things. You learn how to name, tame, reframe. Like you learn all of those things as you do work.
Right. And to self-soothe and emotionally regulate and how to handle it if you don't get the response that you're hoping for,
Yeah.
which I also address in the book.
Right, which is where I want to go next,
Yes.
because I know that not often you do, too. I mean,
Right?
sometimes you do.
This is the reality.
Sometimes you don't, and that can be devastating.
Yeah.
So how, for those that are listening that are curious as to what they should do, so say they've done the things that you suggest, they learn how to really put, words to their emotions, they're not shoving it down anymore, and it doesn't get received the way that they want. What are those next steps for somebody?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is the hard reality, is that when we talk about relationships, they're inherently risky.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, it's actually the most dangerous thing we do in a way, right? It's kind of like driving a car. You feel really safe,
Mm-hmm.
but there are risks. So you don't know that your needs will be met. What I can say is that when you're really vulnerable and clear in this method I give you a lot of the time, because this is what I'm doing in therapy, you'll be amazed at the reaction, the different reaction you get from your partner. Vulnerability invites vulnerability. So when you really go to that layer, it's very difficult for people to actually go like this. Just human nature. However, it does still happen. We don't know how much work our partners have done. They may not have developed the ability, they don't have the self-esteem to actually tolerate feedback no matter how nicely it's said. So if that happens, then you have choices. If you're consistently communicating your feelings and needs, and then I also encourage meta communication about what's happening, going to your partner and saying, hey, I'm really making an effort because this relationship is so important to me. And I keep trying to be really, really vulnerable and really clear. And I'm using a lot of I statements and telling you how I feel, not criticizing or blaming you. And yet every time I bring something up, it seems like you shut down or you walk away or you get defensive. And I don't know what to do anymore. I care about this relationship greatly, right? So that kind of approach at that point sometimes can help a partner hear, we have a problem in that we're not able to talk about these things. Do we need to seek help? But the bottom line is that you can't even guarantee your partner will do that. So you have choices to make. And this is about empowering yourself to understand what your relationship can and cannot offer you. And if you're communicating and doing your part and saying, hey, can we go to therapy, or can we go work with a coach, or can we go talk to someone at our church, and your partner won't. They won't work on themselves. They won't meet you there. Then you've got to decide, is this relationship in its totality something I can live with its given limitations or not? And I don't take the stance that every relationship should last. I don't think that's realistic. Relationships are complicated. You may have outgrown your partner. You may have outgrown your partner and say, you know what, I've outgrown this person, but I want to be here for these reasons. I've learned that it is so complicated why people stay and why people leave, and we need to make it more permissible for people and easier for people to make those hard choices.
Yeah, because it is hard, and there's so many things that, it's the domino effect, right? Of especially if there's kids involved or
finances.
Just finance. Yes, all of those factors.
Right.
And it can be really challenging. So for those that maybe need to go, what do you suggest to do on that side too?
You need to leave the relationship. Yeah. I mean, it's so hard. So I wish, and I'm glad we're talking about this because I got divorced at such a vulnerable time and I really lost my whole world. I don't think I did it the right way, but kind of like the way we've talked about publishing a book, you learn from your experiences. So I think that planning in advance is really, really important. Don't make this decision out of a burst of emotion. Feel your bursts of emotion, process them. Go talk to an individual therapist and or a couples therapist. Don't just talk to your friends.
Yeah.
People have very strong opinions about relationships, and people will, this is how we work, they will project their own values and ideals onto you. They're trying to help, but they don't know what they don't know. So find somebody that really knows about relationships, even as an individual therapist, and go talk to them, even if it's for 4 or 5 sessions, just to talk through your options. Look into your finances. Really know what you're faced with if you're going to part ways. This is something I wish I had done and didn't do. I thought it was very noble that I, told my ex-husband, I don't even want any money. I'm out of here, because I felt that I was being controlled a bit through that avenue. But the truth is I didn't have any viable means of earning money right out of the gate. It took years. So I really shot myself in the foot. And I think a lot of women, even very intelligent women, are not really understanding what the picture will be until they're faced with that. I also suggest everybody go meet with 2 or 3 minimum divorce attorneys for a consultation. Some will do it for free. Some will charge you $500, $1,000, depending on where you live. It's worth it. The laws are constantly changing. They're different in different states. If you're legally married and thinking that you might leave, find out. Information is power. So know what you're faced with. And if you have one friend that you feel like is really a safe space that isn't going to give you advice, but you can unpack your feelings and that person's a vault, then certainly lean on a friend like that, or maybe someone who's been through a divorce. But I just think you're going to get a lot of bad advice. Yeah. So you've got to really consult with some experts before you take the leap.
Yeah, such good advice. 2 of my very good friends both are divorced now, and I have a small group of friends, and so that's a significant percentage of our friend group.
Yes.
And I've watched them struggle with, just the challenges of it, but just being there, right? And so if you're listening and you don't have these challenges yourself, God bless, but be there for somebody else, because it can be very lonely and it's devastating, right? Like the last thing you want is for it to end. When you think about spending the rest of your life with somebody, you're planning for the rest of your life. And then when it doesn't work out, that's so hard. And there's so many things that have to be considered, and show up for each other. We are all about empowering one another around this community, and being able to be there for somebody through the bad times is even that much more important than when things are going great.
And if you know someone getting divorced or who got divorced, reach out to them, because everybody shows up with the casseroles when someone dies, but divorce is a death. And people are scared of it because they think it's contagious. And actually, there's some research that it can be contagious, but not in the sense that if you show up for a friend with support that you're going to suddenly get divorced. I think it's just so scary for people. Even though it's so common, it's still stigmatized. You don't know what somebody endures in the privacy of their home. We all say that, but just because your relationship, you may think, oh, marriage is hard, and you have to stick with it, and that's not the reality for everyone. A lot of people are going through situations that are emotionally abusive, physically abusive. There's chronic, rampant infidelity, addictions. You don't know what's going on. When somebody gets to the point where they're choosing divorce, trust me, nobody gets married wanting this. You can be sure that there's been a lot of pain behind the scenes, and these people need other women in their corner.
And they're grieving.
Yes.
They are grieving the loss of something that was not what they thought it would be.
Exactly.
And that's very difficult.
The life you plan to live, right? And then also you have to go out there and
start over.
Perhaps your career and dating is a whole nother, right? And that's not even what's the top of most people's mind, but plus, we're wired for connections. So if you lose so many of your connections, it's really hard. You're no longer a couple.
Right.
You don't go out with your couple's friends
You lose
anymore.
friends over it, too.
I lost all my friends, all my faux friends who, in the long run, good riddance, but it's very painful to feel abandoned and rejected by people.
It is. So, but let's turn the conversation now to some stories of maybe where you were able to help people repair that maybe felt like they were at the end and that there was no hope. So let's leave the audience on a high note too. So
absolutely. So I think a lot of the time people will come in wanting their relationship but feeling hopeless because what they've been doing hasn't been working. And again, they don't know this method of communication yet. And a really good portion of the time, it can be turned around. What happens is you get into this feedback loop, this negative loop of you react a little protectively and then your partner reacts protectively. So I'll give just the most common example. I think I'm saying my feelings, like let's say you're my partner and I think I'm telling you my feelings, but I say like, Allison, you never do anything. I've told you this so many times that I need help with the dishes and you just leave them there. Like, what do I have to do to get through to you? You just don't listen and you don't care. So that's not communicating my feelings, right? That is me criticizing you. And granted, it's out of despair because I can't get through. I'm fighting to be heard. But when I tell you instead, Allison, I feel so hurt and like I don't matter to you somehow, when I come home and see this same thing we talked about, that nothing's happened, it really hurts me and I don't know what to do, right? Then I have a much better chance that you're going to say, oh my God, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize. You're right. I haven't done. I've been so busy, but of course I care about you, Colette, and I'm going to do the dishes. I mean, I'm giving a simplistic example, but what I see in my office and can happen through this method in my book is that when people really tune in and they express themselves that way, so many people go, oh my God, my partner really does care, right? They do want to listen. They just haven't known how, or I haven't been speaking so clearly. So I've had so many couples come in on the brink of divorce who fit this dynamic more. They're in a criticize, defend loop, right? Criticism, defensiveness, and the arguments go around and around. They become more disconnected. And then the negative view that you have of your partner gets more and more entrenched every time you're stuck in that feedback loop. So my job is to help people get out of that loop and to see that the pattern is the problem. The reactions are the problem, that underneath it, we really love each other and we want the same thing. I've had couples that are married for 40 years that have never known how to communicate, and witnessing what I see in my office. This is where I love my job and I could cry thinking about it. Seeing how much people love each other and how when they're able to get out of their own way with the reactivity, that they really see and feel that love. It's amazing. I mean, I had one couple that had so many infidelities. And one thing I think people don't know, I'm not excusing infidelity. I've been the victim of it. It creates so much pain, but it's much more common than we think. And many, if not most couples that want the relationship actually do repair and rebuild trust. And I had one couple that were in their 70s. They'd been through a lifetime of infidelities. The chronic infidelity was a coping mechanism that had been developed at a very young age for one of the partners who had been through unbelievable, horrific trauma. And they had to do a lot of work, but they were able to really change how they communicated, to hear each other, to connect to themselves and each other, to stop the chronic infidelity. And they are now so happily married. You know, they have many children and grandchildren, and they're enjoying life together. And it all starts with how you show up in the moment.
Yeah. Super important, but also I hope those listening have some hope, right? So but the underlying thing, do the work, right? Like learn how to communicate. Don't shove down the emotions, the feelings. Don't become the victim volcano. That resonates, like that just visual image resonates so much with me. Yeah. Probably been a victim volcano a couple times in my life, but
I have too.
It's normal. So, but you do deserve the time, energy, and space to work on yourself. And if you do nothing else, read the book, right? And start there at least. And then if you need more support, there's amazing people. I'm sure they can reach out to you to be connected or even, work with you.
Absolutely. I mean, anyone, if you're looking for resources, feel free to reach out to me. You can message me through my website, ColetteJaneFehr.com. If you're looking to write a book, I mean, please reach out because I know how daunting it can be. Or even just for how do we find a good couples therapist, I'm happy to help because I think it is really hard. People don't know where to turn. And I love what you're saying about do the work because that's it. A lot of relationships can be saved, and you'll be amazed sometimes even if one person changes, the system, a relationship's a system, and it will change. And if not, you're going to empower yourself to make the choices that are right for you.
Absolutely. Well, we love to close the show asking a couple questions.
Yes.
This was so great. Loved it. But what does confidence mean to you?
Ooh, I love that. So confidence means to me being willing to show up authentically in the face of fear and know that you're worthy regardless of what happens.
Beautiful. Love it. And then who else inspires you? What are you reading? Who are you following? Who are those individuals in your world that you're just like, wow, they're powerhouses and I would love to just be more like them or spend time with them?
So I think my unofficial God is Esther Perel. I really do. Close to worship worship her. She's just a relationship genius. I think she's got all the ingredients that I aspire to emulate. She's vulnerable. She's authentic. She brings concepts to the world and ideas that people need to understand to make their relationships better. And she's also really human while she does it. So she's my spirit animal number one, I would say. And just, I mean, maybe this is cliched, but I still am so in love with Oprah.
Oh, me too.
Like Oprah,
the queen.
Yes, she just all through her career, I feel like the way she stays true to herself, right? She doesn't pretend that she's impervious to any of these flaws that we're talking about, which makes me love her more. She's super vulnerable. She's made it time and time again against all odds. And I think she does what she wants, and she doesn't care what anyone has to say about it long before she became the powerhouse she is.
Yeah, no, I adore her as well. And one of my favorite quotes is from her, and it's the whole point of being alive is to evolve into the complete person you were intended to be. And that has been just like my battle cry for the last 20 years of my life. I just feel like it's almost that permission slip to evolve and to change, because the world can try to fit you into a box, or your relationships can try to fit you into a box of the version of you that you once were. But we are blessed. We've been given gifts and talents and opportunities and open doors to share and to grow and to do. And I just always remind myself of that quote. So I'm glad you mentioned Oprah. I love her. So I know you mentioned your website. If people want to connect with you, where else can they find the book? Where else should they connect?
Yes, so the book is available wherever you get your books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, through my website. I'm sure there's a million more, Books A Million, Indie, whatever. I don't even know what they're called. But anywhere you get your books, bookstores, you can find my book, The Cost of Quiet. And again, my website, ColetteJaneFehr.com. I have 2 podcasts, Insights from the Couch, which is for women at midlife that I co-host with my yes. And we cover, everything we're dealing with, including menopause, perimenopause, relationships, and so much more. And then I also have a show called Love Thy Neighbor that's focused on relationships that I co-host with local legends, Tom Van and Dan Dennis. And they're really irreverent, great, fun guys. And so we talk about all the kind of relationship stuff, male, female things. So you can find all of those through my website or wherever you get your podcasts.
Perfect. We will link to everything in our show notes. Colette, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations for bringing the book baby to life, because it is just such a significant experience. And I know how much it matters to you. And this community will show up for you. I promise you. We love to support authors. We respect you. And we know how much heart and soul goes into this. And so we want to make sure that we show up and we support. So buy her book, post about it on Instagram, share it with your community. Like, this is a book that's going to change lives. So congratulations. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that. And thanks for having me. It's been so great to be here.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I am so grateful that you are here. As always, please continue the conversation over on Instagram at Allison Walsh, and make sure that you check out all of our freebies. If you scan the QR code, if you're watching on YouTube, or check out the link in the show notes, it will take you to a page full of resources and trainings and things to help you go farther, faster. And that is always my intention, is to help you continue to grow. And as always, I believe in you 1000%. And my goal is that you do too. Take care, beautiful. I'll see you next time.